Something big is brewing in Pittsburgh as the Pittsburgh Penguins have made a sneaky good move that's flown under the radar and sets them up with a massive opportunity at this year's NHL entry draft. And not only that, gives them a fantastic opportunity to continue building this squad up. We're going to break down exactly what this move is and why this has major implications on the entire organization. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Penguins Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the Pittsburgh Penguins, go down below, hit that free subscribe button because this is the place to be for all your daily Pittsburgh Penguins content. But Mark, let's dive right into it. The Pittsburgh Penguins have not necessarily made a move. Another team made the move for them, but it's a very interesting one and sets the Penguins up to make another move, another trade ahead of the draft to move up. And this is a very interesting one. The New York Rangers today officially announced, and the deadline for this was actually tomorrow at 7 p.m., that they are sending the number 12 overall pick to the Pittsburgh Penguins, which obviously was sent to Pittsburgh in the whole debacle through the JT Miller trade. So obviously, the Rangers had to make a decision on that pick before tomorrow night, and they're sending it to Pittsburgh. Now Pittsburgh and the Penguins have the 11th and the 12th overall pick, and there is a lot of speculation and some reports right now that they could actually trade one of these picks attached with something else to move into the top 4 or 5 of this year's draft. And by all reports today, teams are very active. There's a lot of top 5 picks that are apparently on the trade block right now, which is pretty insane. There's a lot of movement, but one thing is for sure, the Rangers are keeping their unprotected first rounder from next year. They're sending their pick this year to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I think this is actually a very good thing for Pittsburgh because there's one guy we'll touch on in a little bit later in the video, stay tuned for that they want, and they're going to have to move into the top 5 for that. So again, it was part of the JT Miller trade. Mark, what's your thoughts on the Penguins getting the 11th and 12th pick? Would you make these picks? And again, later in the video, we're going to touch on who they could pick with these picks. Would you make both picks, or would you use one of them to leverage in a trade and go after a top 5 pick in this year's draft?
I mean, the first thing looking at this, I understand Penguins fans, a lot of you guys like Marcus Pettersson, a lot of you like Drew O'Connor, but looking at the 12th overall pick for 2 of these guys is looking like a steal for the Penguins. You're getting a top pick as this team moves into this retool, rebuild, execution, whatever you want to call it at this point. But we know the big thing is it opens up a lot of possibilities. You now have back-to-back picks, so you're not stuck trying to decide on your prospect at this pick. If you get to 11 and 12, you can just take 2 great players to build with in the future. But in my opinion, Dubas has a very good opportunity. You have both these picks. There's a lot of reports that teams in the top 5, maybe in the top 8, want to move down a bit or at least move on from these picks. So Dubas does have the opportunity. If he's looking ahead of this draft, if he's looking at someone projected to go maybe 8, there's guys like Victor Uckland that looks incredible. If he wants to move up, he has the perfect possibility. You might not even have to move both of these picks to go up to pick 9, 10, 8, whatever it is. So you could still have 2 first-round picks, Darius, but I think Dubas has a really big opportunity to almost accelerate this rebuild if he can move into that top 5.
Absolutely, and you saw it off the top in the intro. I think the one player that they do want, and the reason that I believe they want him, is because Kyle Dubas watched him this year, is Porter Martone. He's projected to go in the top 5 of this year's draft. Again, apparently there's a lot of movement going on right now. There's a lot of guys that are jumping up even 10 spots, which I think is very interesting based on some of the interviews and all of that. But I think Kyle Dubas really wants Porter Martone. He's going to have to move up to get Porter Martone. And again, the reason that he wants him is because Kyle Dubas and his staff spent a lot of time watching Penguins prospect Finn Harding in Brampton this year for the Brampton Steelheads, and Porter Martone is the captain of that team. He's a late birthday. It was his 3rd season in the OHL, and he absolutely lit it up. And I think that, after watching almost an entire season of him closely, because you have another prospect on the team, you could see that you probably really like him and that you would want to draft him. So I think that is one reason why they could use one of these picks in obviously a trade to go after a guy like Porter Martone. But if you look here from the 11th to 15th spot, again, this is Bob McKenzie's list. This obviously probably won't happen, and other people have different lists, other insiders, of course. But there's one guy on my radar here that I wanted to touch on. We know that the Penguins are going to be making one of these picks. They could send one pick, either 11 or 12, in a trade to move up. We know that. But they're going to be making one pick in the 11 to 15 area, right? So there's a couple names that are available. If you look at Radom, I mean, he's a great player in WHL, put up 35 points in 43 games. I think the Pittsburgh Penguins, with this pick specifically, I don't know if they're going to move up or not, but the pick in this area, in this range, they should go after a defenseman. And I think a left shot defenseman could be pretty interesting. Again, this is another defenseman. He shoots right. He had a good year. Another name, and this is the guy that I think that they should absolutely target, and I want your thoughts on this, Mark, is Jackson Smith. We've touched on him on the channel a month ago, I think, at this point already, and I said that this is the player that you should target in the draft if you're the Penguins with that pick. And again, there's going to be a lot of movement. Maybe Jackson Smith moves up, right? He gets picked before. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. There's a lot of movement right now and a lot of rumors flying out there, and I think there's a lot of, mind games getting played with some GMs. But this is a guy in 68 games with the Tri-City Americans, had 54 points, like almost a point a game player. He's a defenseman. This is a guy I think you could use on the team moving forward.
And I mean, looking at both defensemen, they're both big, 6'3" and 6'6". I think Dubas is going to start really leaning into this size mold. You're getting defensemen coming through this draft in the first round that are not only a big defenseman, that's a more of a goonish style, but you still get someone that can go out and produce on it. Jackson Smith, the perfect example, at 6'3", putting up those points. I think it's going to get very interesting on if he wants to go and go back-to-back. I mean, if you want to pull up Bob McKenzie's ranking again, there's a lot of guys that could fall in here. Carter Bear is a very interesting name. Had a leg injury during the season, but still having a very productive year. Dubas can go out and fill two positional needs. He can get a winger and a center, or he can get a center and a defenseman, whatever it may be. I'm very excited to see how he handles this, if there's a guy that he's dead certain on trading up for, or if he's going to go out and just take the best two available players at the back-to-back picks, Darius.
It's going to be very interesting. And again, I think that he has his eyes on Porter Martone. And, we all want things, but you're going to have to trade to get up there. And obviously the other team's going to have to accept it's going to have to be a worthwhile trade. So it's going to get very interesting. And again, the only reason I'm, really focusing on Jackson Smith is because I believe he is a guy that could help this team, will be a great player in the NHL. And obviously he hasn't really moved too many spots. He's kind of hovered around that 9 to 13 area through all of the kind of draft boards so far. And I wanted to read this out too from Stephen Ellis of Daily Faceoff in terms of Jackson Smith. And he said that he's physical, he skates very well, and he's as mobile as it gets for a 6'3" defenseman. So you have the size, you have the physicality, he can score, especially at the junior level, and he's mobile. I think that's a fantastic mix. So he should be an impact player on Canada's World Junior team next year too, which will help us with the overall profile and understanding who he is as a player. And obviously he's going to grow into who he's going to be and the player he's going to be. And from Sam Constantino as well, he's rounding his into form by continuing to develop his physical game, keeps good gaps, so good gap control. That's another thing obviously Pittsburgh, some of the defensemen they have trouble with, that's for sure, and projects to provide at least secondary offense at the next level, which is great. I think that's great. He's not going to be an Erik Karlsson in his prime or anything like that, but he is going to be able to provide you a lot of offense. You can see here his strengths, skating and mobility, transition play, offensive zone making, and he has a pretty solid two-way game. And again, under construction, his discipline, which is something you got to get under control, especially going to the NHL, and his turnovers under pressure. But those are things you can work on, especially at the junior level. Last thing before we wrap up here, Mark, they have a lot of free agents, the Pittsburgh Penguins here, UFAs and RFAs. The RFA market is very interesting this year. Are there any names on this list that you think they should absolutely re-sign? I think Connor Timmins is a good piece for this team. I think you do want to re-sign Philip Tomasino. In terms of the UFAs, I don't think they're, overly excited to sign any of them. And I think they want to dip, into the free agent market a little bit. But what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, Timmins is the most intriguing one for me. We've seen him come over in a trade. Dubas, this is the second time getting Timmins in a trade after he got him with Toronto, get him in Pittsburgh. But I do think Timmins can add a lot of value to this team. He's a bit sneakily underrated on the offensive end, a bigger defenseman. So in my opinion, I think RFAs are going to, like you said, get very interesting. We've seen the St. Louis Blues last year go out and make 2 offer sheets. And I think with general managers seeing how well that worked out, Dubas and the rest of the teams in the league are going to start worrying about their guys getting an offer sheet at this point.
Absolutely, and I think that a lot of teams are going to start worrying about that. I don't know if the Pittsburgh Penguins, I haven't heard too much about some of their RFAs, but things are going to get interesting. But let us know how you feel in the comments about everything that's happened. The Pittsburgh Penguins get another first-round pick in this year's draft. We don't know exactly what they're going to do with it yet, but they can, use that to their advantage. They can make 2 draft picks. it's probably going to work out in their favor. So let us know how you feel about that and the RFA and UFA situation. Let us know how you feel in the comments, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Pittsburgh Penguins.